Okay, it's now 9:01 a.m. on Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. I call to order this meeting of the Maine Gambling Control Board. My name is Steve Silver. I'm the board chair. Before we go any further, I'll just explain the circumstances under which we are holding this meeting. This is a hybrid meeting. The physical location of this meeting is at 45 Commerce Drive, Augusta, Maine, in the, I don't know, what room are we in? Champlain room? Okay. Not the Fallen Heroes room. We're also providing a virtual attendance option via Zoom in accordance with the board member remote participation policy adopted by the board on July 20th, 2021. The board expects that members of the public who attend the board meeting virtually will be able to provide public comment to the same extent as members of the public who attend in person. So if you're participating via Zoom, we're going to mute your devices until it's your time to talk. The Gambling Control Unit, on behalf of the board, posted notices of this meeting on its website with instructions on how members of the public could access the meeting. In addition, the unit, on behalf of the board, sends agendas in advance of the meeting to those that have requested so by registering the request with the unit. They're also always posted online, so even if you're not getting them sent directly, you can go on the website. Mallory does a good job of getting those up early. So before we move further, I'll introduce the other board members, confirm that we have a quorum. So when I call your name, please identify yourself for the public, state your name and where you're from. So we'll start with you, Ms. Bickmore.
Kelly Bickmore, Cape Elizabeth, Maine.
Screen.
Morning, Sarah Green, South Portland, Maine.
And I'm Steve Silver from South Portland. We'll ask one more time, is Joe Hanslip on? Okay. I know Chief March is absent today, but we have 3 members present, which is a quorum. So we can move forward. And with that, first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the June 25th, 2024 meeting. Any edits, questions, issues with those? Okay. I guess question, can Ms. Bickmore vote to approve the minutes?
No, because she was absent from us at the meeting.
Okay. So we can.
So do we have enough or do we delay?
No, you have enough.
We have enough?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so
2 out of 3.
so moved.
All right, I'll second it. Take a vote, Ms. Green.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Ms. Bickmore will abstain, so approve those minutes. And with that, we'll go to the operations report from Inspector Supervisor Vicki Gardner.
Good morning. The operations report for June of 2024. There were 10 shipments of machines and or associated equipment shipped to or from a licensed facility. On-site inspectors completed 29 checklists, which resulted in 0 complaints of potential violations. There was 1 formal complaint, which was reported by Deputy Director Matt Motti. There were 3 minor violations. 1 was detected while completing a checklist. 1 was self-reported by the casino, and 1 was just a violation was detected while observing processes at the casino. These 3 violations will be continued to be monitored from our activity log. There was 1 patron's complaint, and there were 9 self-exclusions. Moving on to the calls for service from the police organizations, Oxford PD had 16 calls for service. There were 5 in the parking lot, 1 in the hotel, and 10 in the casino. They included items such as intoxications, trespass, request for an officer, suspicious activity, drug activity, agency assist, traffic offense, and vandalism. At Hollywood Casino, there were 12 calls for service by Bangor PD, 4 in the parking garage, 1 in the hotel or the lobby, and 7 at the casino. They included disorderly, there were intoxications, PD accident, E911 hang-up calls, open line, information, a robbery, suspicious activity, and wanted out at the hotel.
Thank you, Vicki. Is any more information about the formal complaint that was reported by the Deputy Director?
Can I speak to that? Yeah. We had the Deputy Director had an opportunity to audit the casino's cameras, and they didn't, we don't believe that they met the set or satisfied the ICs.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Vicky? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the financial report. We have Auditor Alex Jutov.
Total tax revenue paid to the state of Maine decreased by 4.31% in June 2024 for both facilities compared to same months in 2023. 2024 year to date, the tax revenue collected from casinos was $33,450,183, which decrease of 3.33%. Or $1,151,745 compared to same months in the prior year. The Oxford Casino reported total net win from slot machines of 7.88% in June and total win from table games of 23.80% in June 2024. The Hello Casino reported total net win from slot machines of 8.24% in June and total win from table games of 24.81% in June 2024. In the area of advanced deposit wagering, we observed a decrease of 11% for June 2024 compared to same months in 2023. 2024 year-to-date tax revenue collected from in-state and out-of-state races was $109,129. It's a decrease of 7.4% or $8,708 compared to same months in prior year. That's it for my report.
Any questions for Alex? Any sense of sports betting is causing this drop in the revenue? Do we have any way of knowing that? We're just looking at the year and, we're certainly down except for February, but.
If you're asking me for totals from sports wagering, I believe the last month was about reported 340,000. And I think year to date we have about 2 million and some change
In tax revenue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could we get those just as an addendum to this report, what sports wagering is?
I'm sorry?
Could you add an addendum to your monthly report, what sports wagering is? Just so we get it, we can do a comparison.
Well, what I can do is share the link, but I don't think it's appropriate to put sports wagering in an agenda item.
Well, it helps us
It's not an
understand.
agenda
It's
item.
not an agenda. It really helps us understand as we're watching a decrease in the gambling control in the casino. It
Yeah.
helps us to understand what the overall tax revenue is to the state.
Also, if they're gonna launch sports books at some point, it's gonna be revenue in the casino.
Yeah.
Why would we not see that?
Well, the link has everything. It has all the cascade, who gets distributed and all that
Okay.
stuff, so.
I'm sure I've clicked on it. There's a PDF, right?
Yeah.
So we can just upload it.
Yeah.
Like the quote.
Yeah, it's a month, we update it,
To it. So,
we update it monthly, so.
And what I see, there's some documents in here about an audit that occurred. Who's talking about that?
Board member Green asked if she could see copies of audits. And so that's where we placed them in the Dropbox for you guys to review.
So these are audits that are done by the casino or I guess controlled by the casino, right? They brought in their auditors. But I thought at the last meeting you referenced an audit that the department had also done.
Yes, and that hasn't been completed yet. And as soon as Amanda and Alex complete it, then I'll forward it to the board members.
And had one been done last year?
It's been spotty at best, but now that we've taken over control of the monitoring of the slot machines, it's going to be more consistent. So you'll be getting more than what we've done before.
So I think one of the conversations last month was about an audit that had previously been done and reported back, but hadn't been shared with us. So is that a year old or 2 years old, or where do you think that the audit that was referenced is?
Yeah, no, I think Amanda was talking about a more recent one, like in the last month or two. And she's doing some more discovery, more research in order to have the proper information to forward to you.
And when can we expect that?
Well, I know you guys don't want to hear this, but I have 2 auditors that handle casino, fantasy, sports wagering, ADW, charitable, and all that stuff. So, makes it a little rough, but they put the casinos obviously at the top of the list. So we should be able to have something by September. Yes.
And I'm sorry, one last question. Is there rulemaking that's attached to doing the audit, or is it just discretionary?
No, there's no rulemaking attached to it.
So it's just
No.
the department deciding that it's appropriate to, I mean, just fine.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not arguing with, but you
Yeah.
didn't understand how it's
Yeah.
done. Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
I think we could take it from, but Penn and Hollywood, are you doing this once a year internally? How often are you doing these internal audits?
Anyway. Yes.
Okay. Same for us, right?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions for Alex? All right, thank you. All right, moving on to the executive director report.
All right.
Director Champion.
Yes, good morning, everybody. So right now we are under a legal review of the rules regarding Chapter 28 advanced deposit wagering. And I believe they have a deadline of September 30th. So somewhere around that date, we should be able to forward those, if there's not any legal issues, be able to forward those to the Secretary of State's office for final adoption. And then we'll get advanced deposit wagering under the way. I did submit into the Dropbox the advanced deposit wagering application because the board requested to look at applications later in this meeting. So that's in that box as well. Facility-based monitoring system rules have been sent to the Secretary of State's office for a third publication. I don't believe it's going to go out tomorrow. I think that the earliest it'll go out next Wednesday, and folks would have 30 days to make any comments to that publication. I'm meeting with GLI and BMM tomorrow to discuss other state certification process for labs, and we'll present recommendations at the September meeting, which may include rulemaking. And I'm working on rules for Chapter 13 for a public hearing and written comment at the request of the board, which afterwards will include rulemaking changes to ADW, fantasy, and sports wagering. So basically, we have 2 in the queue and 6 to be developed. And that's my report.
Any questions for Director Champion? Okay. Thanks, Mel.
Sorry.
All right. So we have no licenses this month, no unfinished business. So new business, Commissioner Sashchuk is back with us. I don't know how you want to take everything together or separate them out, but I know you have something you may want to say about staffing and then the schedule change.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me back. Mike Sashchuk, Commissioner for the Department of Public Safety. I apologize for leaving last month. Apparently there's some additional questions after I left. So I will be attending the full meeting today. I know that you're also taking this meeting kind of out of schedule. You added a meeting because you wanted to deal with these issues. So I also appreciate your time in July. So I'll start with administrative staffing levels, which I know was one concern that was brought up after I left. So a little bit of background here, and I know Milt has discussed this in the past, but when Milt took the position in 2016, he was told, hey, come on up to Maine. There's only 2 casinos. You'll be the director of the gambling control unit, and life is good. Which it is. However, charitable gaming was added in 2017 along with fantasy ADW was added in 2019, which is clearly under your purview with the 2 casinos, and sports wagering was added in 2023. I mention that because during that time frame, to include probably 4 of the 5.5 years that I've been here, there are no staff added to the gambling control unit. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Some of it I touched on last month, process-wise, guidance that we received from the governor's office of saying that this is a baseline budget, means we're not adding anything to the budget at any level by any department unless you can self-fund it, or there's some emergency thing that popped up along the way that you can make a solid argument that you need to have that in order to function. So because of that, I would say that 4 of the 5.5 years that I've been here is because we've kind of ripped the Band-Aid off on all 10 bureaus at DPS. And some bureaus started day one when I got here, to say that we just need to be more honest with our public in general, to say we can't do this with the same resources that we had in play 8, 10 years ago, or in some cases 20 years ago. That's not specific to the gambling control unit. I will say as an example, the Maine State Police have not received a staffing increase in patrol in 40 years. 40 years, but yet the mission had not creeped, but exploded. And I would say that the gambling control unit's mission has exploded, to say that we had 1 function 8, 9 years ago, and now we're up to 5 with some heavy hitter things that impact the entire state. So with that in mind, the gambling controls units in the purview of the board here has an interesting dynamic, because while charitable, fantasy, and sports wagering do not fall under your purview, if the unit's busy doing things in those realms, it's going to have a negative impact on some time crunches or deadlines that you would like to see brought forward. As an example, in the last meeting, I think there were 4 rule-making packages that were ultimately added to the gambling control unit's list of things to do. Rulemaking is incredibly difficult, time-consuming, let me put it that way, not difficult in the sense that you're not launching a space shuttle, but it's very time-consuming, very regimented. There's a lot of things that you need to do to include public comment. We need to sit for 30 days. We need to have our partners at the AG's office review things at various times. So there's a lot that goes into that, so that we know that the work in some of these other areas will have an impact on Director Champion's time and the time of his coworkers, people that he works with every day. We have added a charitable inspector, somebody to work over sports wagering, and probably most important from a management standpoint, the deputy director's position over the last couple of years. And that's intended to take some weight off some of these roles. Does it take all the weight off? No, clearly it doesn't. And truth be told, whether he likes it or not, Bill is kind of my rulemaking guy. He makes them so often. I called him last week and said, hey, I got some other rulemaking that I'm supposed to be in charge of. What's that process even look like? So, and it's not an easy deal for him to try to work through those things. So when we talk about your 2 areas of the casinos and ADW and potential staff increases, generally when we talk about staff, we don't give out numbers at any point unless it's approved by the governor's office. She's ultimately the one that's in charge of the budget. And so she'll come to us as commissioners and say, this is what the guidelines are. The door is open this much, make some requests around staff, or it's closed completely. And we're not adding staff at all. And keep in mind that that's just a request. Once the governor submits her budget, then the legislature has to work through that, all of those various committee meetings that we attend. And for DPS, it's a little different because we have multiple committees of jurisdiction at the legislature. So they'll fight about it. It'll go to appropriations, and then ultimately it comes back to the governor for a pass. So what I don't want to do, and what we don't do across the board, is that an individual bureau, 11,600 state employees, an individual bureau comes back and says, hey, Milt wants 20 bodies in order to do these things. And those 20 bodies aren't plugged into the rest of the system. And that's not something that from a budgetary standpoint, that we utilize that process. That's not something that we do. I would say that ideally, if we had a position to work just on rulemaking and rulemaking alone, that would be incredibly helpful. We have tried to mitigate that a little bit because outside of the budget process, we can at times hire temporary employees. Milt has done that twice to bring in paralegals to try to work with the rules, with the idea that it'd give him a little room to do some of the other things that are on the radar. But these are temp positions. So you train somebody up just in time for them to go take another job someplace, full-time versus part-time. Why wouldn't they do that if they had an opportunity? So that happened twice. And it came to the point where it didn't make a lot of sense because we're now seeing a pattern and trend that's going to continue. So if we had somebody to do rulemaking and rulemaking only, that would be a full-time plus job just in the gambling control unit. I think above and beyond that, I would need some guidance from the board, as an example, looking at the next item here, which is schedules. If you wanted 24/7, 365 coverage at all times at the casinos, would that require a different level of coverage? We don't believe so, and as far as we don't believe that it needs that level of coverage, and I'll explain that in the next item. But if you came back with that guidance, that's something we would look at. And from a budgetary standpoint, process-wise, it comes from two directions traditionally. And I think one of them is the governor's budget, and that works its way toward the legislature and back. And the other one is from the legislature through, and that's through bills and other things. So if I was to give you my opinion on budgeting, if you, as a board, wanted to advocate for additional staffing at the gambling control unit to deal with some of the issues that fall under your purview, that could come a couple different ways. You could tell me as the commissioner, Mike, I think we need more staff there. This is why. And that's something that I can utilize in budget processes. That's behind closed doors to the governor's office to say, hey, I have a board that thinks we need more staffing here, and this is why. You could go to VLA directly when these various bills are coming through the system and say, I individually believe that this is the case. I, as a board, believe this is the case. I think you could communicate with the governor's office directly around support for staffing for the gambling control unit. So there's a few different mechanisms for that to occur. I think based on our analysis around the schedule change piece, that we think we can do that work with the existing inspectors that we have.
Can I
Yes.
interrupt before you go off into scheduling? Because
Yeah,
that's
sure.
where you're going next.
Mhm.
I just want to comment on, and I appreciate what you're saying. It's kind of a nice way of saying the same thing Milt has been saying to us. I don't have staff, I can't do it.
Yep.
And a very well explained, thank you. But my concern is that it's coming to a head now. That if this has been a systemic issue for years, that it feels like you or Milt should have come to board a long time ago and said, I can't do my job. So we could have gone to the legislature. And then every time something was added, did the department go to the legislature? And we certainly didn't because we didn't know to say, no, don't add sports wagering until we have more staff because we can't do it. And I don't know I don't know, maybe your department did that. I have no idea. But I'm worried that this got so built up to here that, that we're hearing now, not enough staff, when it's something that feels like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when these things started adding on, should have been a board discussion.
Well, I think board discussions are your two areas of control, and that's casinos and that's ADW. That doesn't impact the board, whether you have an opinion on sports wagering or charitable games.
But
or
you've already
fantasy
made the
or whatever.
connection, right? We
I did,
know,
yeah.
right, that if
Yeah.
sports wagering and those things happen,
Mhm.
it impacts the casino. And of course, it's also problematic because it doesn't come under the board, and that's a whole other issue.
It
Because
certainly is, yeah.
it's very significant.
Yep.
Obviously, we can't turn back time. I get that.
Mhm.
But it feels certainly going forward that we shouldn't allow these things to build up, right? That these should be much earlier discussions at the board level if we're going to advocate on behalf of the unit or on behalf of public safety to the legislature that there needs to be more transparency and we need to be informed earlier on.
So,
Well, if I could answer that, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair. So I think there's also a scenario here that as these bills come up, we add fiscal notes to those bills that say in order to do that work, we need to add 6 positions, 7 positions, 8 positions. And as these bills go through, if they're not within your purview, we're not coming to the board to talk about sports wagering and the staff that are necessary there, even though there is a connection. But we add fiscal notes to these bills to say we need these things in order to accomplish the mission of this particular bill, whatever that is. That doesn't mean we get those positions. That means we advocate for those positions. We fight for those positions in open session. And we can't be any more transparent than going to a public hearing and testifying on a particular issue, going to a work session and testifying repeatedly on a particular issue. All of these issues have been front page news around sports wagering. That was around for a long, long time in order to actually stand up that program. So we are fighting for the positions that we think are necessary within the unit. We don't win all those. I wish we did. And I wish there was more of an acknowledgement of the work that not only the gambling control unit does, but other bureaus within DPS or across state government. Magically, because you make a bill doesn't mean that you can operationalize it. It was the words that scare any person that works in the system is within existing resources. Hey, this is great. You can do it with the bodies that you have. And despite people jumping up and down and saying, no, we can't, that happens all the time. So just because you haven't heard about this in front of the board directly does not mean that we're not directly advocating for our people and the overall mission of the gambling control.
And I'm not suggesting that you're not advocating.
Okay.
I'm just suggesting, forgive me if that's your impression. My concern is that here in this room, in this board, the things that affect the work that we're supposed to be doing, we just need to hear about sooner. And I get that we don't oversee ADW and sports betting,
We do ADW.
but what?
We do ADW.
That's right, sports betting, but it does come back to the work that we do. And so I just would like us to be able to be involved sooner in a building problem.
Well,
And I'm certainly happy to work with Bill to try to loop the board in on legislation as it comes through, because it will have an impact. But that is a constant nonstop process for 6 or 7 months. In January, when this thing goes live again. And I will tell you that I personally touch an individual bill 10, 12 times before the minute it's mentioned all the way through. So if we're asking for bodies to support any of those initiatives, I'll talk to Milt about process, about what's the best way. And I don't look at it as transparency because, again, we are about as transparent as you can get with these processes. But if it means bringing it directly to you and saying, hey, this particular bill may have an impact on the overall work of the unit, we can talk about what that process looks like and see if there's a way for us to accommodate that request. That's fair enough.
well, so sports betting got 2 positions. I mean, that was attached to the bill, right? The new inspector and deputy director.
Yes.
So that was the ask. I mean, you didn't ask for more and not get it. That was the ask. But what I'm hearing is that's taken away resources from the casinos, and maybe I'm not hearing what position do we need. What I hear every meeting is we don't have enough people. This is the first time I've heard maybe one person devoted to rulemaking. Makes sense. Like what else? I'm not hearing what do we need specifically, right? Like what positions, how much does that add up in costs? Where do we go find that money? Because unlike the other departments or things within your department, right, we're generating a lot of revenue. Casinos provide an enormous amount of tax revenue. So does sports betting, ADW a very little bit, but there's just money there. If we can't do it, right? If we as a board said, we're shutting down, we're going to limit the casino's hours because there's not enough staff. I'm sure the state wouldn't like that. Right? So we have the staff to service it. And every meeting I hear, whole board hears, they don't have enough staff. So what's the plan to fix it?
Well, I think what I mentioned already, Mr. Chair, is that a position around rulemaking would be the thing that I think is most important. And as I also explained, processes around budget. I can understand what you're saying. However, the budget is not, the DPS budget is not specific to come in here to this particular board and say, hey, I need 12 positions. And this is what it is. Because our budget conversation is much broader than that. The state police don't run around and tell individual counties, hey, it would be great if you could advocate for 3 bodies over here and 2 bodies over there, because the budget process is much broader. And DPS is one of 12, 15 different departments across the state. So it's not looked at as an individual entity that I would tell you, hey, it'd be great if you could get me 6 bodies. We have other bureaus within DPS that do create funding, whether it's the fire marshal's office, EMS, SBI. But clearly, I think the gambling control unit and that system does create a lot of money.
Yeah, but if we can't run and provide this product, right, in a safe, regulated, fair manner, then we got to make decisions about it, right? I mean,
I hope you're not implying that we're not doing that.
I don't know because it sounds like things aren't getting done or things are done that we're not aware of and create a ripple effect. The rulemaking we have to talk about next is because a decision was made where we didn't know and the casinos didn't know. That's why we have new rulemaking. This whole, I mean, did you see the list? It hit all these things that somehow nobody thought about and then made the change. So now we've got to do it. It's not something we like to do or it's fun to do. So something's going on. I can't quite crack through what the reality is, but let's make a list. Here's the exact positions. Here's what we think it's going to cost, right? Salary, benefits, all that. And then let's make a plan for January to get a standalone bill. Say we need this, because we as a board can't get any work done if all we hear is we don't have enough staff. And if sports betting is so gigantic that the two people that it was attached to that bill are being sucked, it's sucking more than that, and we got to go back to the legislature. I don't know. It's only mobile right now. Like, I don't know what 2 full-time staffers are doing when you only have 2 apps operating. That it's sucking away resources from the casino, what the unit should be doing on the casinos. I'm not saying it doesn't require 2 full-time people, but they're apps from major national companies who report their stuff once a month. Like, I don't know what's going on there. We don't have in-person yet. When that launches, I'm extremely fearful because if what we're hearing today is we don't have enough staff and you now put 2 new sports books at the casinos and 7 at the OTBs, who's going to go cover that? Right? I mean, that's a pending bomb. It's not our problem, but there's got to be a plan in place for it.
I don't think it's uncommon to look at operationalizing something as a statewide program and then realizing that you need to shift staff in one direction or another, depending on what you find real time once you're in a scenario. And you can also plan a great deal in advance before throwing the switch on a particular program and then realize that there's additional things that we need to deal with along the way. I say that, having initiated programs over the last 20 years in various settings, that's not uncommon at all. And it's the same thing that I mentioned at your last meeting around schedule stuff. We may find out that we want more staff or less staff or different hours or whatever once you get up and running. And if I'd be lying if I came in here and told, we know exactly how this is going to play out, because I don't think you do. And what's going to happen when you have bricks and mortar locations on top of mobile, I don't know. We can guess to a certain extent, make an educated guess based on what's happened around the country and what we think is going to happen here. But that doesn't mean you have that locked in stone. That's just not an operational reality.
But in many ways, if we start with staffing, that there was never, I don't believe there was ever a request out to the casinos and said, if we change this schedule, how is it going to impact us? That's a really legitimate question before we go into schedule changing. So I think this, we won't know until we do it, is a little bit disingenuous because there are ways to find that information before we make a program change. Scheduling being an example.
Well, I don't believe it's disingenuous at all. If you want to switch over to the staffing question, then I can explain what went in to that decision-making process, but that's up to you.
I mean, we can. I guess I just want to, and you may not have it today, and that's fine because we're in July and there's plenty of time, but I want to see a plan. And if I'm hearing it's not going to come sort of through the traditional budget process, you need the board to do it, fine, we'll create it, but someone's got to tell us the exact need and what the plan is to go get it. Maybe it's a multi-tiered approach, right? With the committee, with the governor, or whatever. I'm trying to fix the problem. The problem that's been very clearly identified is there's not enough staff. So what I want to hear is, here's the staff we need, here's how much it costs, and here's the plan to go get it. Because we can't fix the past. So that would be my request moving forward is let's create a plan, identify what we need, and then go pitch it, right?
Which, for the record, we asked for last month.
Okay, but we do have some time. So that's what I would do. Or we don't, or it's really not an issue. Like, that's what I can't really get at. Like, because I'm hearing we don't have staff, we don't have staff. This should be urgent. This should be priority one. But we haven't really got details as to what it is we need and how to go about getting it. So let's do that. Make sure we're ready in whatever, November when you gotta submit, December when you have to submit the stuff, and be ready to go in January.
Budget conversations will start in earnest next month.
All right, well,
There's
next
been a-
month, there we go. So,
Well, it's starting next month.
Yeah.
It's a multi-tiered, multi-month process, where we'll receive initial guidance on exactly what that is. I don't have that guidance right now. Exactly what our budget requests are gonna be in January, for the legislature. And that's not uncommon either, when you're trying to work towards a budget process. They just finished the budget process. The money's going live on August
I
9th.
think what we're asking for is, Milt's been saying he can't do X, Y, Z, whatever, because he doesn't have staff. So Milt knows what he needs, not what the governor's saying, not what the big picture is, but really much more granular, which I believe is what we're asking for, is tell us what you need to do the things, what the department needs to do the things they need to do. We may not get it all. We recognize that the budget's a big amorphous thing. But what do we need? Because then there may be things that we say, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing because we can't staff it. So I think it's really a departmental question, Milton, and to the deputy director, what is needed in the department?
I completely understand that. I'm not sure that you're understanding where that request, where this one particular board fits into the broader budget conversation. And when I get guidance from the governor's office that says DPS is open for adding additional positions, then that opens up a list of priority potential for me, right? It may be I get 0 bodies, and that's just the way it is, because there's a statewide perspective to budget making.
And it may be that you get that.
Yeah.
But if we don't know what is needed in the unit, then we can't advocate for it, and we're not doing our appropriate oversight. So if it turns out the department says we need 3 positions, X, Y, and Z, whatever they are, we advocate for it, the governor says no, then we now have a responsibility to say, okay, then these things are not going to be regulated appropriately, or we won't have the proper oversight. But we need to know that, right? And maybe we can impact the change. Maybe we can go to the governor's office and advocate. And I know you don't like the idea of advocating individually at a unit level, but that's our responsibility in this case. And so I totally understand and appreciate what you're saying about how the budget process works. But because we sit in meetings hearing, we can't do this because we don't have the budget, and we feel for that. We understand that. We don't have the bodies. So we just need to know what's needed. And I think without that, I don't feel like I'm doing the appropriate oversight. I think I speak for others.
Well, and I think I am recommending for individual advocacy. I don't have a problem with that at all. But if you're asking me what's the staffing level request today in July, then I don't have those. And we're
I'm not
talking
asking
about
you, I'm
later in the
asking
fall.
actually Milt. I'm asking Milt to say, because he's the one that always says, I don't have the staff to do this, this, and this. And so all we're asking for is Milt to say, if I had this position, I could do it. If I had this position, I could do this. If I had this position, I could do that. That happens every day across America. People are making those comments, and it shouldn't be that difficult to say, this is what I need in my department. Will we get it? I don't know. But we need to know what it is that's stopping the implementation or stopping them from being able to achieve certain goals, or actually even enforce our rules that we already have.
Well, then what I'm saying is that Milt works for me and I work for the governor. And I'm happy to bring some information back to you later in the fall when I actually have some guidance about how our budget process is going to be moving forward.
I don't have another way to say
I
what
think, I think we're banging our head against the wall. You know,
Well, you're saying the same thing and I'm responding the same way multiple times. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. And when I have some guidance, I'm happy to provide it back to
right. But if Milt, and I'll do it right now. Milt says, in a dream scenario, here's what I have. Outside of that whole process, you all know I can make a lot of noise. I'll go make the noise and get some attention on it. And I'm already going to submit a bill to the VLA to look at all the cascades for everything that comes under the board. So there's going to be tweaks here and there, and some of that revenue may be directed towards a new position. I mean, either the answer can't be, I don't have the staff, right? We're never going to hear that in this room again, or I need the staff, here's what I need. Try to help me go get it. Like, I don't know how to be any clearer, but we're not getting anywhere. So unless other board members, it just need a list. We just need to know what we need. And nobody can give that to me. So it's pretty frustrating. We saying the same thing? It's just, so that, I don't know if there's anything else on staffing, because I'm not sure what it is we need. So we can move on to the schedule change, which has opened up a whole other things.
Okay, so on the schedule change component here, I want to talk about the timeline a little bit more of LD 2070. And that would have been an act to amend gambling control board slot machine monitoring. That's that central monitoring system, the facility based. That worked its way through the last legislative process up till March 12th, when the House enacted that 106-0 in favor. March 13th, the Senate enacted that 30-5 in favor. And then March 19th, the final disposition of emergency was enacted. That's the same date that the governor signed off on that. So clearly wide base support moving its way into the system and moving that legislation forward. And then I think for us, it does come down to operationalizing and acknowledging our regulatory authority as well as the desire to support our customers. So regulatory authorities supporting the entire state with these style operations, and then customer service for the casinos in particular, a reference to their needs around slot machines and changes and transfers and updating of data and systems. So I know that Milt looked at a series of things as part of his review that led to the schedule change, the final decision to do that. One of those was an industry standard. And I know that Milt reached out nationally and ended up receiving information from similar units as his in Iowa, Arizona, Florida, Michigan, Delaware, Mississippi, West Virginia, Colorado, Pennsylvania. And that ranged across the board from states that had no inspectors on site at all, some that had 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, some 24/7. Some of these states had as little as 3 casinos or 3 facilities, and some as many as 34. So really what that tells you is that you can run this style program with different staffing levels, depending on exactly what your specifics are for your particular state. We also know that from those conversations and through experience, that Sundays and Mondays tended to be the 2 days with the least amount of activity. And then as an industry, most of your management staff are off those 2 days because they're chasing patronage numbers. So how busy is it going to be? Where am I going to be? That's pretty standard workload analysis from a system-wide perspective anyway. So that was some of the industry level.
Sorry, management staff, you mean casino management staff?
Yes. Yeah. So then you had how do you localize that? You take that national information, then you come down to the state of Maine itself, and then you have some patronage numbers. And I will say that these are from 2019 when this was looked at before, which do show like a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or kind of Monday is traditionally that slowest day across the board. And then Tuesday and Sunday are kind of running neck and neck as far as your patronage levels or your lower parameters for your patronage numbers. So that's kind of that localized look at patronage. And then you look at, so do we need that 24/7 coverage? And is that something that we have to have from a regulatory standpoint? And we know from going back to December of 23, as an example, that there have been 8 times where we didn't have coverage in the facilities. And that's primarily somebody books off sick, and then you can't fill the job. Nobody wants to take it from an overtime angle. And 2 of those were actually a couple Saturdays ago on the 6th of July. And that totals out at 91 hours total, right? So that's not every week something's vacant. But that is a situation where we didn't force employees to be there. And we also didn't clearly shut down casinos because they didn't have inspectors problem or present. And we didn't observe any major conundrums or problems that occurred during those particular shifts. So there's that's a tiny snapshot overall of coverage on the inspection side over the last 8 months or so. That's just the 8 months. Obviously, we could have gone back further, but that seemed to touch on the issues there. We also look at, so if they're not in the facilities every minute that they're open, is that going to impact deliveries, as an example? Is that going to impact their operations because nobody's there to accept deliveries? And what we know is over the last couple of years, there's only been one facility delivery, and that occurred on a Sunday. We looked at Sunday, Mondays in particular, and found that there was one delivery on a Sunday at those two facilities. So there were no deliveries on Monday. I don't believe it was the last 2 years. It's a different time frame.
Since January.
January, my apologies. So since January, as an example, there was only one delivery that occurred during those 2 days. So that's a minimal impact. And with prior knowledge that just simply says that we're going to be in the facilities in these timeframes. So start to tweak your deliveries accordingly when people are going to be available. I think that that's an easy fix on that side. And then we look at violations in particular. So that means that violations that are either self-reported or located by inspectors themselves. So since 2022, so 2022 to date, we've got 23 different violations. 19 of those were self-reported. And the remaining violations appear to be issues around shipment delivery. So not things that are actively seen on the floor real time by inspectors, but things that they located through the shipment process. They're all important. That's important that we do notify and identify those as issues. But we did look at that and say, so we had no specific problems with Sunday, Monday as an example. If there were problems on Sunday and Monday and there wasn't an inspector there directly, and the casinos had located that, they would self-report that to us. We would have the opportunity to go back and investigate that like we would in any of these other scenarios. So those are some of the items that were looked at. And then on top of that, you do have decades of industry experience that Milt has in this industry. And we looked at the schedule overall and felt that that move from 410s to 5/8s with a double up of staff would allow everybody to have some flexibility. We're saying to the casinos, our partners, that in those 5 days, if one of those employees books off sick, that somebody's still going to be present to deal with any of the issues they may have with the facility-based system, transfers or transitions or updates or RAM clears or the technical stuff that I would ask Milt and Matt to answer if appropriate. So if we were to double up in those timeframes, we would be able to deal with those issues as they occur, as well as deal with opening up the potential for more floor monitoring, game monitoring by that second, or in some cases, that third inspector that may be present. So ideally, I think you've got 4 inspectors running around 24/7 and everybody's doing it. Is that necessary based on our review of that? No, which is why ultimately Milt and Matt thought that this schedule would work for them. And we did have a meeting on this particular issue. They pitched it. I asked all those questions about how did you come to that? What are you going to do with the third person? How does an overlap impact your operational abilities? And they felt that that was the best way to move forward. And I don't have a problem with that decision at all, based on the background that got us there and our ability to continue to accomplish our regulatory mission while trying to support our partners in the casino. I think you have the ability to have both worlds there. And because of the facility-based, let's say it's 2 days and the machine goes down, well, they can do certain things, again, that are far more technical than I should ever mention. But they can do a RAM clear and put a work order in so that inspectors can come in, as an example, on a Tuesday and catch up on whatever they need to do. So I think that those things in mind, led to this ultimate schedule change. I will also say that at this point, in preparation for this meeting, that Milt and Matt have had their second round of in-person meetings with their inspectors and their supervisor in the facilities. And so that means Oxford and Bangor met last month, each of those entities in person, to talk about the agenda and get caught up on anything that's happening. Last week, they had another meeting with Oxford and Bangor inspectors, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, everybody's caught up. And the intent there is to build that communication model internally, and build trust and relationships amongst employees and managers. And so I think those things have been implemented, and I think they've been effective at this point. It's early on, so we've got a long ways to go to continue to work on issues as they pop up. But I understand a world where throwing an email out to the netherworld isn't ideal. So having an opportunity to sit down with your managers every month in person, I wish I had that opportunity with people across the state. But they're making that opportunity happen. And I think that's going to be effective long term. So I think that's the thing that we discussed. We don't have any casino specific rules at this point that we would be seeking input from the inspectors on. That was the second piece of what I discussed last month about some of these changes that were geared towards some of the things that you read in the media and elsewhere around relationships and communications. So that's in concert with the things that I just discussed around the schedule change, kind of how we got here today.
Oh, I have so many questions.
I have a lot.
So, stepping back from it, what was the original motivation? Was it budgetary because we didn't have enough money to pay them? Didn't have enough, couldn't staff? What was the original reason for even approaching the schedule change?
So I think if you talk central monitoring to facilities-based monitoring does have a lot more hands-on interaction between inspectors in the slot machine scenario. So the intent there was, if we're going to ask our inspectors to take on more of a load around actually facilitating that system, the central monitoring system was kind of hands-off from the inspector standpoint, right? Facilities-based, there's a lot more things that we're asking them to do. So with that in mind, we think that doubling up that staff and crunching the days that they're available would allow them to do that work in support of the casinos and that chain.
So can you give me an example of how much more work that facilities-based monitoring is?
I won't be able to answer that myself. You guys want to weigh in?
Well, I guess the biggest thing would be able to, if you take a look at the rule package that we're instituting here, there's malfunctions, there's power outages, there's RAM clears, there's all these things that can happen to a slot machine. And so particularly on the Sundays and Mondays, the facilities can, if a machine goes down, it's just a comm type or a communication type thing or whatever the case may be, they can RAM clear and put the machine back up to put it into play. And then we follow up on Tuesdays to verify that it was actually done. And we're also taping the machines. So in some cases with a RAM clear, they have to break the seal and we would go in and seal it.
But that's not my question. My question was, the commissioner just said that the facilities-based monitoring increased the workload of the inspectors
Yes.
while they're there.
Yes.
So on the days that they're there.
Right.
And so much so that we needed to have double coverage during that time. And I'm asking, what is it that requires double coverage from single coverage that's inherent in facilities-based monitoring?
So if the casinos have 10 slot machines that are coming in brand new and they have the bases on the floor and they want to put them in, they want them up and in by, the weekend or whatever the case may be, or the holiday, then if we only have one inspector scheduled and that inspector calls out sick and nobody fills in, now we're telling the casinos, we can't do it today. We're going to have to do it tomorrow or whenever that next appropriate day would be. So I just felt I didn't want to hear complaints from the casinos saying, we had this set, we had this scheduled. Inspector wasn't there. He called out sick or vacation or whatever the case may be. And now we can't get this stuff done. So that's why I recommended having two people, so the situation of two people getting sick on the same shift, I don't know, it's better than just having one.
So how often does that happen? I mean, so we're saying that facilities-based monitoring in and of itself isn't that much more work. I think what you're saying is you want to make sure we always have somebody there at this facility. So how often do we have this type of staffing issue where someone calls in sick?
It's all the time, quite often. Sick, vacations, you
I
know.
think what I've
Vacations
heard
could be
repeatedly is that time is money. And if as a system, we are bringing forward, we want to move from central to facility based, that we want to make sure that our customers have the opportunity to put these machines back into play as fast as possible.
Except
We
for
don't
2
wanna
days-
be-
except
but
for
now-
2 days, except for
now
2
they
days a
don't.
week.
Well, we can guarantee the 5 days instead of roll the dice on the
But
7.
but really, aren't you always, even if you did 7, right? Let's say you had somebody call in sick once a week, right? 52 times a year. You'd still have 6 days of coverage opposed to 5 days of coverage. I mean, I just don't, I'm not understanding, sorry. It just, it feels like there's more to this, and if you take it to the extreme, it's like, well, if we don't need inspectors on Sunday and Monday, do we ever need inspectors? And I am really opposed to rule changing to say, on these 5 days, this is the rule. But on these 2 days, not so much. I don't understand. Why would a rule be important on a Tuesday and not on a Sunday? And I don't understand why an inspector would not be necessary on those particular days. When if our issue is only we're worried about not having particular coverage, then we've got a management issue or an issue to talk to the union about if we've got constantly people not showing up for work. And that's the reason we're doubling up. So it feels like there's something else that's not being said in all this is what I feel like.
I don't know what that would be.
I think
don't know
what I'm
that
hearing,
implies.
I think what I'm hearing is the rationale was to have more coverage, but in enacting the change, we actually have less coverage.
Right.
So that doesn't make sense.
I'm not sure the math works on that from,
Sure.
so you have.
If we're saying that we're worried, we have to have 2 inspectors all the time because one person might call in sick.
So we're
And
gonna take out 2 days.
so we're gonna take out 2 days, but we're not even saying that we get 1 day 52 times a year that somebody would do that because we said 91 hours.
91
Right?
hours.
So it's certainly not even 1 day a week, which would give us 6 days a week. But now we're saying we're gonna do 5 to solve a problem that doesn't really seem to exist.
Well, I think you have knowns versus unknowns, right? So if you know that there's 2 days that aren't gonna have that coverage, then you plan for your deliveries and your upgrades and everything else on the other 5. So if you know that going in, then I don't think your math necessarily works.
Okay, we're not gonna squabble about that, but you raise a good point about if you know. We did it. It seemed like nobody thought about, well, what if someone comes in for self-exclusion? What if you need the temporary license? What if there's a jackpot over $25,000? All of these things that have to occur, and there's no inspector. Like, where was the breakdown in that? Because I've got a list in front of me of all sorts of things that are now impacted. So we're talking about planning. It didn't seem like there was any planning. Like, what was communicated and to who before this went into effect? Because today we still have holes that we have to figure out how to fix. That's my problem. Someone made a call about who needs 2 people, 1 people, but we're operating. I mean, have you seen the documents in the Dropbox? I don't know who responded to them, but the casino submitted on our request, things where they had questions and issues. Some of the responses are the most flippant and quite frankly, rude things I've ever seen for a partner with the state. It's shocking to me that this is how we would do business. Like, I'm embarrassed. So there was no planning. So let's just forget that. We've got a problem, and to just respond with, deal with it, schedule accordingly. They didn't know the schedule changed. How could they schedule accordingly?
I mean, I think a great example of this rudeness is
Thanks for confirming it's
Yeah.
the lowest days.
well, yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna read.
Just send a middle finger up.
Oxford Road, we may not be able to do moves overnight on Sundays or Sundays and Mondays when we are at our slowest, which is obviously when they want to do their moves. And the answer is, that'd be correct. And thank you for verifying that Sunday and Monday are your slowest days. It's like, okay, I mean, yeah.
It's just shocking to see that. I don't know who wrote it, but
I'm confused. So I think there are 10 Dropbox licenses. I don't have access to that because other people that work with us every day do. I'm confused. Are you saying a flippant response from the gambling control unit back to the casinos?
Yes.
Or, okay,
Yes.
I haven't seen those. I don't know what that big.
yeah, and I can appreciate that. So I would highly recommend you take a look. Because that is emblematic of what I've seen in the past 4 years now of sort of the back and forth. And like, we're not enemies. Like, we can regulate the casinos without doing this crap. But the bigger issue is that there's major things, right? Some are minor. Okay, how often does the slot machine need to have the RAM cleared and that? But like, hey, the rules say, right, to pay out a jackpot, you have to do this, this, and this. We now can't do it on Sundays and Mondays. And so now we're getting a proposal for how to deal with it months after the fact. Like, that can't be. That's just not how to operate a business. And imagine if a patron was told, oh, you want this big jackpot, right? We want to take the picture with the big check, but sorry, we don't know what to do because Oxford and Hollywood has to wait for somebody to act, to tell them what to do.
Oh, I think the bigger issue is we knowingly put the casinos in violation of rules. When we made this change, we knowingly said, but if you're going to continue operating the way you are going to be in violation of some of these rules. And that's just wrong. That if we were going to make this change, then the comments from Oxford and Bangor, that we should have they should have been able to comment ahead of time. We should have dealt with rules if we needed to change rules ahead of time. But this after the fact that we did this, and here's the implication. And I guess that goes back to my disingenuous comment when I said, there wasn't enough plan. We didn't go to the casinos and say, tell us all the ways that you're impacted. You've heard from the department, but not from our partners. And so I think that I feel very uncomfortable when we create rules and then say, yeah, but then we're going to change things and you might violate the rules, but then we'll deal with it.
Or like, hey, be a good pal and help us out while we figure this out for the next few months. Like, that puts them and their employees in an untenable position. Because then when there is a violation, how do we really issue discipline? Right? Because
we're willing.
we ask them to break the rules all the time. Like, just if we're saying this was a calculated, planned effort, fell very short. And then, and I know you may not be able to talk about it, but it sure seems like from what I've heard and read, the inspectors themselves weren't given much notice. And that's a big change to someone's life from 4 days to 5 days of work. I want to back up because you talked about something, you looked at the staffing or the deliveries in 2019 to figure it out. Like, why wasn't something done more recent? Pretty much anything pre-COVID is irrelevant, in my opinion. Because last year we did over $12 million more in revenue from the two casinos than in 2019. It's a lot more patrons, a lot more gambling hours. So those stats that was based on they're useless, in my opinion. It should have been last year, or at least 2022. Like, why wasn't that done?
Yeah, I will ask, Bill to respond to that. I guess I would say that for the last 30 years I've been in public safety, I can tell you what the busiest time frame is from a law enforcement perspective in any community in the country. Because it's a pretty standard answer, and it's the same standard answer that's been in place all the way along. Are we saying that we think that the gambling industry has changed from 2019, that all of a sudden Sundays one of the busier days or Monday is one of the busier days?
I don't know. Do we have the data?
An updated number would be helpful, and I don't think there's an issue with that. And
if they had launched sports books, I guarantee you Sundays would probably be the top day.
Well, this board doesn't deal with sports books or sports wagering. for that
It's gonna be inside the casino.
When it does, yep, sports wagering, however.
Okay, we're not getting anywhere. So I don't know what's going on, and you all clearly don't think that we have an important position. When they open sportsbooks in a casino, we are currently operating an environment with no inspectors on Sundays, and that will be the busiest day. Monday nights will be extremely busy too. So we're gonna change it again and have to redo all the rules again. Like, that makes no sense. I feel like I'm in an alternate universe. It just, this is beyond wild. So I don't know. Does anyone else have any other questions?
We're just gonna go round and round. And I'm not gonna support changing rules to support this the schedule change until we deal more with the schedule change personally.
Can I just ask it, you know, I'm fairly new to the board, but we do have certain roles and responsibilities to, like in regulatory sense. So I understand there's less activity on Sundays and Mondays, but why, just because there's less activity, do we need, like, is that a day we could have one inspector instead of a doubling up? But I'm just trying to understand that we're supposed to regulate certain things and we're supposed to be there to do that. And I like, you know, the one that struck me the most was if someone were to win a big jackpot. I can't imagine saying to that patron, come back on Wednesday when we've got somebody to help you. You know, that's not gonna fly. I mean, I don't think they get handed out all that often, but you know, how seriously do we take regulating those things? And it came up about self-exclusion, and like a state inspector has to sign off on that. But then when they were asking, well, do we have basically saying if that happens on a Sunday or Monday, do we have cover? Like, are we going to be in trouble for signing, like in this, can we sign in the state spot? So that seemed particularly odd to me that we would only have some of our responsibilities on certain days and not when the casinos are in operation. That's the part I can't wrap my head around. I understand like there are slower times, there are things like that. I think we plan for people's vacations. I mean, we deal with staffing all the time in our jobs, right? So we know people are going to call out sick, and there's nothing worse than calling out sick. I work in a hospital. My staff call out sick. Guess who has to go in? Me. So, you know, it doesn't seem like we have a good plan for that. I don't mind the doubling up. I think that's great. But why, if that's what the need is on certain days, why isn't it the need on every day? That's what nobody can really explain to me. And that's what I'm trying to understand as a new person to the board.
No, I appreciate that. And I don't know enough about specific scenarios around a jackpot, what that would look like, to answer that. I don't know if we're prepared to answer that right now, Milt, or I know self-exclusions as an example was dealt with in the last meeting. So my understanding was there was definitely some one-offs that need to be dealt with, that we were attempting to do. So
Self-exclusion was dealt with temporarily. It was a temporary move, just so that we could.
By us, but remember, we don't
By
have
us.
authority to talk about everything in the walls of the casino.
Well, I think that the proposed rule that we'll discuss when we get to it about the jackpots is that the casino can pay it out at their discretion, meaning that we could come in after the fact and say no. So it's really putting them on the hook to keep a patron happy. But it's at their risk, it seemed like, from the response.
And to take it a step further, why not let them always do it then? If you're gonna let them do it on Monday and Tuesday, why not, or Sunday and Monday, why not let them? All these things happen 7 days a week. And I just don't get it, why a rule one day is okay, but they don't need it the next. And I appreciate that, that Mel came to you and you had discussions, but it feels like you didn't have all the information either in supporting this decision. You didn't have what the issues that the casinos raised and some of the issues that we're having. And it feels like when it came to you, and I understand you have to rely on your staff. That's why you have staff. I get that. But it feels like there was information lacking when it came to you, when you determined that you would support this decision.
Also, this all could have just been dealt with in an email. Hey, Austin and Matt, we're thinking about doing this. By Friday, can you give me a list of things this may impact? Done. We wouldn't have wasted 2 meetings on this. That's not hard. So. Yeah, I don't know. We probably need to move on to actually trying to fix the problem. But
Well, let me say this. This was undoubtedly an unusual and not normal situation with that bill. That bill said by June 30th, it will be done. And I presented to the board that there are 2 scenarios here. One, that the transition has to be done by June 30th, and 2, that we would have to undergo rulemaking, which now we're publishing the 3rd publication, and that's okay. But in the interim, I also said that, and I've been working together with both facilities, right? Different things that come up here and there, answering questions and all that sort of thing. We've been working them out. But I do recall saying we're going to have a grace period, because after all, GLI come in, they trained our inspectors on what they're supposed to look for. We had some technical difficulties that Matt's been working on, getting GLI access, BMM boat, getting the right cables to test the machines and all that sort of thing. So all these things are being worked out, but I'm not sitting here and looking at the rules today and saying we're going to violate you because now that we've made the transition from facility or from central to facility, that they're still in play. So we are giving a grace period. We are working through them. We just finished a work order to make things. I just met with our inspectors, and my motto is work smart, not hard. So we're communicating more, right? But I've also had that constant communication with the facilities as well. When central monitoring system was here, they put in a work order. It was sent to central monitoring. They did their thing on the back end. They did their thing on the front end. We had nothing to do with it. Now, the security of not having a central monitoring system is now at the slot machine itself. So that's why the inspectors, when software comes in or a new machine comes in, they verify the software. Then they collectively go ahead, do the upgrade or do the install, right? And there's paperwork involved. There's verification of software involved. There's all these things that was up to the central monitoring system. Is it time consuming? I don't know. It depends on the device and how it comes out. Now, as far as Tuesday through Saturday, if one inspector is out doing a 10 machine install and they've got, 3 machines that are down, just need a RAM clear, that second inspector can go over and take care of that. Or the inspector can say, you know what, go ahead and do it and we'll check on it later. So there's certain things that the facilities can do. And when I first came up here, I heard trust but verify. And the other thing I talk about is tell us how you're going to run your business and we'll check on you. So, and they're obligated to self-report any issues, any violations, anything that's going on. So, and that's not to say that we're leaning back and we're okay with that. We're still there. We're still supplying the coverage. But when we have vacations, 2 people are scheduled, one's on vacation, the other one calls out sick, or whatever case is. So there's more scenarios than just getting sick. There's vacation coverage and all that sort of thing as well. So, my point here is that this was uniquely different. If we didn't have that June 30 deadline, we would be going through the rulemaking process like we do any other time. Once the rules are adopted, then we would have gone in and we would have done the transition, and everybody, so it's kind of, instead of AB, it's BA. And so right now we're real close to getting these rules done, and we have absolutely no intentions. The inspectors have been working with the technicians and the auditors have been working with the finance departments, didn't skip a beat for the revenue, not a beat. We transitioned over and my auditors got with the finance department, they came to agreement and the revenue keeps flowing. No hiccups whatsoever. So I just think there's a picture like there's something going on out here and there's nothing going on. There's complete cooperation, right? Are they always happy? Am I always happy? Or, is Vicky always happy? No, not necessarily, but we're working it out. We have that time frame to work it out.
Yeah,
So-
I get that, but what I'm hearing is it's even more important to have multiple people on at all times at the casinos. Like, that's the disconnect. I'm hearing this is so much more work and requires so much more hands-on work that we need to have this dual coverage, but somehow Sunday and Monday is not necessary. Like, that's what doesn't add up. It sounds like in the fiscal note to that bill was saving $500,000 a year. So then there should have been added position if we need more inspectors. Like, I'm hearing they have to do so much more work, and it's so imperative that if somebody calls out sick, that we have backup. But somehow it's not
That's what they
important on
want.
2 days a week. Like, that just doesn't fit. No, that logic doesn't play out.
What I
You're not going to convince me otherwise. Sorry. But so-
What I will say, Mr. Chair, if possible, is that what I'm happy to do before your next meeting is I will sit down with both casinos and our internal staff to go over whatever that list is that you have, a list of concerns, to kind of work through that and take a look and see exactly if there's a middle ground there that is effective. But I'm happy to do that. I don't have that list. I haven't seen that list. But I'm happy to have that communication directly in person with the casinos, which we've done before when I first got here around complaint processes and all of that. So I'm happy to chat with them about that.
And I appreciate that. I guess we were hoping the rationale for the change doesn't fit with what the change was. Because the rationale was we're going to really make sure that if somebody calls out sick, we have coverage. Somehow we don't need coverage on those 2 days. And that's where we're just not meeting. But yeah, there's problems that casinos have, and look, at the end of the day, it's not that there was this rule change and this is unique. And so somehow all the inspectors felt the need to sign letters, contact me, contact the media, contact legislators. Like, that's not normal. And that's, so, and I know we can't get into it, but like, let's not all just pretend like, oh, it's because the legislature gave us a tight deadline on rule based. Something else happened here. And maybe it's emblematic of other things, but we got to clean up the problem there. And in the 4 years I've been here, it's sort of like, are we going to enforce this? Are we not? Is this okay on now? It's very hard to conduct your business and know what is allowed and what isn't, because on any given day, a certain combination of three of us could say, here's a 6-figure fine, right? Or not, or here's a letter of warning. Like, this is why we have rules. So I think that there's a couple takeaways. One is identify what staff we need, how we go get it. 2, create more communication. And then 3, I think we really need to consider this. We need an inspector whenever the facilities are open. Because what I'm hearing is something totally different than what I expected. I thought we would hear, look, we're really slow on these days. There's really not much for people to do. Why would we have staff here when we can, help on busier days? But what I'm hearing is, no, there's so much to do. We need more people, but somehow not on these things. That doesn't really make sense.
And I guess as you're thinking about that, the other thing I was struck by was, I don't think the comparison to other states is particularly relevant. I think we could come up with a list of 24/7 as easy as the other, but I don't think that part is relevant either. It's all just relevant to what our rules are. So what our rules say needs to be done should be what drives the staffing levels. And so we have rules that say these things have to happen, and that drives staffing. And if we wanted to change the rules, it would change the staffing. Well, that's a discussion. But I don't think it has anything to do with industry standard or any other state. It's all, here are the rules we've adopted. What do we need on site for inspectors to make sure that those rules are enforced and we're supporting our business partners? Last thing I'm going to say on that.
All right, Ms. Bickmore, anything else? Okay, all right, thank you, Commissioner. So let's talk about what we may or may not be able to deal with now. Because, I don't know where we want to start. There's a whole bunch of rules that are impacted here. I think maybe the jackpots might be the biggest thing calling out to me right now, because of the way our rules read. And I would think maybe one of the AGs could help. If we're gonna change that, we need to do formal rulemaking process.
Milt, is this something that's being addressed in the existing rule package?
Yes, it is. Right now, in that segment, it says prior to payment of any slot jackpot, which has a total value in cash and or merchandise of at least 25,000, or any jackpot where there is evidence of a malfunction. It used to say, the operator will notify the central site monitoring system provider, winning combination or malfunction has been registered. The central monitoring system provider will conduct a system check on the slot machine and will notify the department immediately if any irregularities are noted. Upon notification of a jackpot or malfunction, so forth and so on. So what we have now is obviously repealing or deleting all the areas of central monitoring. And it says the department shall respond at its earliest convenience to conduct an inspection and or investigation, right? And this is upon the notification of a jackpot of 25,000 or more. The operator may award payment of the jackpot to the winning patron at its discretion. And then it goes on from there. So this has been dealt with. The inspector does not have to be there. They can pay out a jackpot over 25,000 and we'll come back and unless the technician feels that the machine, there was a malfunction, then you would shut the machine down until investigation was done. And that ultimately could include a certified lab sending their folks in to make sure of the malfunction. So there's kind of like additional parts, but right now, in the proposed rules, because we don't have a central monitoring system anymore, the operator may award payment and the department will respond at the convenience to conduct an inspection or investigation.
Which,
So it's,
but so if it hits on Sunday, the absolute earliest would be Tuesday.
yeah, if it hits on a Sunday, they pay it out, turn the machine on, reset it and start playing. And then we just come in after the fact on a Tuesday.
Can they reset a machine without an inspector present?
Yes.
But effectively, we're saying they could do this 7 days a week.
Yes.
Whenever they want, they can just do this.
Yes.
So really, in essence, these changes that we're going to be asked to make could ultimately, the next time around, it could be that you decide that we only need inspectors Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Because we're being asked to make rule changes that really put a lot of the onus back on the casino, which may or may not be appropriate, but we're not specifying Sunday, Monday. So effectively what we're saying with all of these is we're moving a lot of the responsibilities that we had on the inspector or the department to the casino with sort of a post-inspection at some point at the convenience of the gambling control unit. Would that be a fair interpretation?
Well, no, we have dedicated staff that have been with us for quite a few years.
Oh, we do now,
And-
but you could easily just change it and say, I'm going to cut back a little bit more and have somebody there Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
No, I think and this is my opinion, professional opinion, if you want us to add coverage on Sunday and Monday, then we'll certainly submit through the appropriate process and see if we can't get those. Like I said last time, I don't have an HR department where I walk out and I
guess
say,
that's
hey, I want to hire 2 people. Can you put the ad in on Monday and I want to hire them by Friday? That's
My question isn't
you know.
staffing. My question in this case was the impact of these changes. So I think I'm just clarifying, the changes we're being asked to make aren't really specific to the current situation of Sunday and Monday. They will impact all future situations where you or any other, whoever is filling your role, you or someone else could say, well, now we want inspectors Tuesday afternoon and Thursday mornings, and that's it. I mean, I think that is the impact of doing this, because we're putting things back on the casino.
Here's an example, and correct me if I'm wrong. So what we're proposing is for like a RAM clear. If they do it on a Sunday or a Monday, the inspectors and auditors will confirm on Tuesday, right?
Correct.
So why not just tell them,
But
just do it, and we'll get to it when we get to it? Like why are those days supposed to be unique? That's what Sarah's getting at. We could have an inspector one day a week, right?
Yeah,
So they
and
can
that's
RAM
really-
clear
and
6
that's really
days a
what we're being
week
asked
and
to
you'll
do.
get to it when you get to it. Like I guess I'm not understanding the importance. Maybe it's not important. We don't need anybody. It's just an odd way to set up the rules. And maybe it's just a minor thing.
No, and my reply to that would be, I would not go less than what we currently have. If anything, I would add to it. But I'm never going to approach the commissioner and say, we only need people on Wednesday and Saturday.
Right, but like,
I
if
mean,
on
you
a
know.
Tuesday, if you gotta do a RAM clear, you'd have someone there. You're saying we need to have an inspector.
two inspectors, apparently.
But on,
No, with a RAM clear on a Tuesday, if the inspector's busy doing something else, they can certainly go out there and RAM clear the machine and get it back up and operating. It's not saying RAM clears can only be done on Sundays and Mondays by technicians.
No, I know. The casinos can do it.
We have a work order that we just put on our website for the technicians to fill out the work order, go do the RAM clear, and then submit the work order to us, and then we do our thing after that. So there's nothing that says, if we have 2 inspectors working and they're both busy with whatever it might be, that a technician can literally go out and do their own RAM clear on any day,
okay,
right? As long as they submit the work order and we
that's
know
the
it.
point.
Yeah.
That's why I'd say, so why does it even matter? What
Well,
day it is?
because the work order still has to be done regardless,
Why?
because our auditors follow up with the revenue. And if there's a slot machine that's on an average has, I don't know, $30,000 in play, and all of a sudden this month they have 300,000, we kind of want to take a look at that and see if there was any type of changes to the machine or any of that sort of thing.
So why not just have the casino do a monthly audit report? I mean, I know I'm just reiterating Steve said and what I've already said. It just, I'm struggling still with important on one day, not important on another day. Why not let, we have this thing about removing a slot machine. Why not let them remove slot machines whenever they want? What we have trust on these days, but not on these days. And I recognize I'm just repeating what I've already said.
Okay, can you explain what's going on with temporary licensing? Because I'm not clear as to
Yeah.
what that is and who's issuing them.
Yeah, so temporary licensing, when we get an application in the mail, hand delivered, or whatever the case may be, we have checklists. We got to look at it. It's got to be a complete application. We got to have the fee, all that sort of thing. And at that time, once it's deemed complete, then Mallory does a process of issuing a temporary license that actually gets printed out to the state offices. So it's not even a deliverable type thing. So we did that probably about a year ago to be able to get those temporary license to them quicker. But especially with initials. There's been a lot of issues, and you've heard me talk about it in other meetings about taking snapshots of IRS receipts and all that sort of thing. And it's real specific that we have to have clearance through Maine revenue and all that. And then all of a sudden, and then in addition, in the renewals, they have to submit their latest tax information, which sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And then when you're going through the application process, you got to check, make sure that the application's been initialed and that every question's been answered, that sort of thing. So it's not a thing where you hand it in FedEx and it gets to us at 4 o'clock on a Friday that you're going to get that temporary license on a Monday. The administrative staff works Monday through Friday, barring any vacations or holidays or anything of that nature. So it's
So
not a thing where we deem it complete the same day and it gets printed out.
So is that different than a 1-day pass?
Yeah, the 1-day pass was a situation, and I actually had a little bit of a discussion on it. So the 1-day pass by rule, it indicates.
You're talking about the appendix.
You're
talking about chapter 5.
Yeah, well, no, that's temporary licensing, the temporary badges. So what was going on is I did a review or research of the 1-day pass situation, and I don't. Oh, God. So after review of the mix, all right, it does not address a 1-day license or pass and whose responsibility is to issue them. In 2D, operators organization number or letter D, all licensed personnel must visibly display their person or on their person their state of Maine gambling license while working on a gaming floor. Then in E, it says licensed employees shall notify their supervisor and the department's on-duty inspector of a lost or stolen or destroyed state of Maine gambling license. This notification will be made as soon as possible after the loss or destruction is recognized, right? Says nothing about, oh gosh, I'm here, I forgot my license, or forgot my badge, it's at home. And so what was being done is we were issuing 1-day passes and the state inspectors were doing those. And when I reviewed the log of 1-day pass issues, it was very evident that it was being abused. And so I just felt because it's forgot it, not lost it, not damaged, not stolen, that the facilities should be looking at these more often than the inspectors have in their list, right? So I gave the list to the facilities. In fact, I even did another tab, said, here's your abusers. Please address accordingly. And they agreed with taking over the 1-day pass. So now they come into security. I would imagine they come into security as they enter. They don't have their badge. They get issued a 1-day pass, and it gets turned back in at the end of the shift. So, but there was nothing in here about forgot it, and I think that's where most people are utilizing the 1-day pass is when they've actually forgot it. Now, that's not to say somebody would have lost it or stole it, or get it stolen, but I can't believe that person would have to have 2 weeks of a 1-day pass when they're supposed to report it to the supervisor. They're supposed to call Mallory. Mallory issues a permanent badge, right? Because it's been destroyed or lost.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where that.
But
that
so-
came to be.
Let's say it really is lost. Something happened to it. The rules say they have to notify their supervisor and the department's on-duty inspector.
Right.
But if there's no on-duty inspector, what do they do?
Well, Vicky's got email, I have email, Mallory has email. I mean, there's ways to, I mean,
That's enough.
well, Mallory's the one that's gonna issue it. So it's gonna get to her anyway, when they let the department inspector know, the department inspector notifies Mallory. And and then Mallory
Okay.
reissues.
But so we need to change that
annual.
language, right? Because it says on-duty inspector. Mallory's not the on-duty inspector on Sunday night, Monday.
Right.
Right? I mean, I'm misreading this. It says on-duty inspector. So we need to let the casinos know, what do you do in that situation? I don't know what the answer is, other than maybe they just issue the 1 days, keep doing it.
Why not always do it?
Separate issue, we'll get there. But we currently say they have to notify the supervisor and the department's on-duty inspector, but we don't have on-duty inspectors 2 days a week. So how do we fix it?
That is something that you can address in rulemaking.
Well, the rulemaking process, if you want to change that, they can email Mallory direct. That's the way the communication is in regards to an application,
then-
so.
Okay, and so in that scenario, then the casino issues a 1 day pass.
If it's lost, stolen, or,
And they can keep reissuing that till
until
it's replaced.
the license is replaced, yeah.
Okay, now second scenario, the forgot it one.
Right.
That's just the casinos are handling that on their own.
Yes, because I think it's something they should address. If they haven't been made aware of it, and I don't know if they were before, because we were keeping a spreadsheet of who those license or 1 day passes were issued to. I think now they have a better understanding. And so they can either be notified, security can notify senior management, or they can literally go down to security or wherever they're issuing the 1 day passes. They can go down and actually check the log periodically to see if, somebody's abusing it.
All right, well, I think we got some clarity, but we're gonna have to change the rules. So the casinos can issue their one day passes. And then for an actual lost or stolen, destroyed, whatever license, we're gonna have to use the rule, go to rulemaking, change it. Seems like what we have to do. If anyone has other thoughts. Yeah,
So can we change it? Say this again, but now it becomes something we have just moved from the inspectors to the casinos, and that perhaps that's appropriate, but we're moving things to the casino 7 days a week now. Effectively, we'll be able to do that. If we're fine with that, that's fine. But there's a number.
well,
of
I think, yeah,
Right, because once again.
Keep in mind, I don't want to state anything that's obvious to you, but I just want to make sure that there's a point of clarity here that I read the Appendix A to Chapter 5 requiring temporary access badges, a system for the issuance of those temporary access badges. Casinos are required to have those in their mix, and they do. And so those temporary access badges to me are equivalent to a 1 day pass. But that would be covering the forget it scenario. However, if it's a license, because those are individuals already licensed by the state, of Maine, they just don't have the proof for it. However, if they lost it completely, they can verify they cannot find it, it's been stolen or destroyed, then you'd have to go through the process dictated by ERS 1015 for reissuance of it.
So what if they walk in and say, I just couldn't find my license this morning?
Before I answer that, Jen has a.
Well, go ahead and answer that. I just have an addition
Oh,
to.
okay.
So I walk in and say, I couldn't find my badge this morning.
Well, I mean, that's something that
So what
perhaps
does that
that
mean?
would be something, that the casino and the unit could address. That certainly the board would be welcome to share that information is, at what point is someone abusing that system, that temporary access badge system, and not saying, I don't have that license anymore. You need to go reapply for it. Yeah, that's something that could be addressed.
And I just wanted to add that the existing rules do require, in the case of a lost or stolen badge, notification to both the department and the casino. That already exists, that's already in place. It's a dual notification process. So it isn't a reallocation to the casinos of a responsibility. It's simply who in the department gets the notification and when, because the casino is already the supervisor at the casino is already supposed to be notified in that situation.
Yeah,
But that's a supervisor at the casino, right?
Yeah.
How it reads, and we're saying there won't be a supervisor at the casino.
No, it's a casino supervisor,
supervisor.
casino
Not
employee
ours.
supervisor.
And-
Yeah, not our inspector.
Right, so,
Yeah.
right, so, that's right, so, and the department's on duty inspector.
Well, it actually says, yeah, and that is, we can easily change that. We've got these rules open right now. You guys can make a specific finding at the next step and that can be addressed, that specific language. Because it's
that's
simply
all I'm-
who at the department
that's
is
all I'm
notified.
talking about changing. We
Yep.
just, I mean, we may need to just do a control F for on-duty inspector and see if it uses that phrase elsewhere. And it's a simple change, like, it's not a big undertaking, but if you're using the language on-duty inspector, times when that's not available, so we either need to have a sentence that says, you know, if there is no on-duty inspector, do X, Y, Z, or just remove it entirely and say, contact the unit, right?
Well, and I would ask Milt put together for you, the director put together for you a list of the rules affected, and he can explain sort of how he created that list and whether that he's already done that work to determine rules that were affected.
Well, I mean, I mean, you can walk us through it, Mel, but I don't see it broken down in a way that other than the jackpot issue, but, you know, for instance, licensed employees shall notify their supervisor of the department's on-duty inspector of a lost or stolen or destroyed state of Maine gambling license, same language. Whenever there's a machine malfunction, right, it says the slot machine shall not be cleared until approved by the department. So how do you, I was just told that they can do clears. But like, this morning, right? But I don't know, I'm seeing language here that's got to be approved by the department, but their department can't approve that on a Sunday and a Monday now. Like, I'm getting two different things. You know, if there's evidence, this is on Milt's list, if there's evidence of a machine malfunction, the operator shall notify the department inspectors. So that could happen 2 days later. That's fine. There's some vagueness in there. Like, I think we have to go through and every time it mentions inspectors, what does that mean? Right, operator is supposed to, if there's a power outage, inform the department inspector on duty. Okay, well, the power goes out on Sunday and Monday, what do we do?
I think there's 6 instances.
Yeah, so, you know,
But that's, just remember, the rules are also open. We have an open set of these rules and they're being amended. So I think the comparison has to include what the current rules or the proposed rules include. And Milt, I don't know if that's included in your document or not.
No.
Okay.
no, he did a good job of pulling out where it talks about inspectors on duty. Reception and inspection of chips. Okay, the inspection will be conducted by at least 3 people and the department inspector on duty. So I guess we're not inspecting chips on Sundays and Mondays, right? I mean, like, it's all, we're gonna have to fix it for all of them.
Yeah. And it is,
Incorrect fills. The table game supervisor must notify surveillance about the error, record the error, and report the error to the department inspector on duty. Can't happen on Sunday and Mondays, right? These could be changed to the department or the unit, period, right? Instead of inspector on duty, but like, they don't mesh up with what we have. If there's an electronic or mechanical malfunction, the licensee may perform an emergency drop on the malfunctioning device after notification of the department inspector on duty. We don't have an inspector on duty 2 days a week, so like, they gotta know what to do.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So if someone's on vacation, someone calls out sick, they would do exactly what they did in that scenario, or
And if we adopt that, then they could do it 7 days a week.
you know?
But there's no reason to have any of these rules. That's the problem.
Well, no, I mean, there's a place for them, but there also has to be mechanisms in place for things like people going
Sure.
on vacation and accidents. And what if the governor locks us down and says, stay at home? Well, what if the casinos don't want to stay at home? What if they want to? We can't tell them to shut down. So
Well, pretty sure the governor did, so.
that flexibility to be there to address a lot of different scenarios, but
It absolutely does, and that's why we need to change the language.
you know, we could change language, but I mean, they've been doing it. But, you know, there hasn't been an inspector there from time to time because of those, whatever reasons, the circumstances.
Yeah, but
We
that's all these circumstances, right, of those things I just listed, coinciding with the potential for there to be someone out sick or whatever, which we heard is 91 hours, so over the course of a year, not very much. Versus, we now know permanently, 2 days a week, there's nothing there. Like, the odds of these things happening on Sundays and Mondays are way higher than it happening and coinciding with someone happening to call out sick. Right, we're all in the gambling industry. I'll take those odds, right? Like, Sunday and Monday is gonna happen. So all I'm saying is, since the rules are open, we need to have a system. I don't know the answer for it. Seems like there should probably be some 24/7 email hotline, you know, that can be contacted because we're gonna be taking people out of the casinos. Like, you can't reference inspector on duty if there isn't an inspector on duty. It puts the casinos in an untenable position. And then you've got someone marks it down, oh shit, it's Sunday at 11, you know, Sunday night. Hey, next supervisor on Tuesday morning, make sure you do this, and they didn't pick up the note. I mean, these things happen, so.
Well, and I don't think all things are equal. So are all things okay to wait 48 hours? Maybe. I don't know. But, you know, I think that looking at these individually is going to be important. But I stand back to, if you're going to say doesn't have to remove an inspector on duty, then really what
Well,
is?
maybe that's the answer, though. Maybe if we just remove inspector on duty from the rules, then Milt's free to decide whenever he wants to have inspectors.
Right, so I'm taking, have them on Tuesday and Wednesday, if you want. Doesn't matter.
Maybe
As long as
that solves the
inspector on
problem.
duty. But is that really what we want?
If I can just clarify a previous comment, it is the same 6 on-duty inspectors in the current,
The proposed?
yeah, the one that, and Milt, is it, I think one question we could procedurally ask here too, if it is possible to pull back the current publication, that will be the most efficient way for the board to address this. So I think you indicated that the Secretary of State had not yet done the 3rd publication. The board could right now address how it wants to deal with these 6 instances of on-duty inspector, and that could get into this republication instead of waiting another round. So
Yeah.
if it is possible to email the Secretary of State and say, please hold this publication if you haven't done it already, the board can right now talk through those 6 instances and make a determination about what it wants to do in the current rules.
Yeah, I can get in touch with him right after the meeting.
Okay,
I don't know that he hasn't identified that, you know, confirmed that he's received it yet, so I'll have to get with Chris Parr and ask him if it hasn't been published, we'll hold back on it.
and if the board
Like-
is referencing the current rules that are on the website, it is the same 6 instances.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and some are different, like, so to Ms. Green's point, if there's a slot machine malfunction, it says, protect the slot machine from any further play to the satisfaction of department inspectors. So, I mean, yeah, I guess you could in theory protect that for several days, but that takes that machine. I mean, like, what do we do there? That's a little different than just sending a notice or something.
Which is different than any and all significant non-routine events and unusual surveillance system failures should be reported immediately to the department inspector on duty. I mean, that's a very different one than to get
yeah.
the slot machine out of the rotation.
So, yeah, you know, I don't have the answer. I have a few thoughts of what you do.
I mean, I'm not prepared to amend these 6, just take off on duty without understanding the ramifications of what does that mean? And what is the substitute going to be?
Well, we could just remove on-duty inspector and just leave in department. And I don't know how technical you want to get with the department by email or the department through the gambling control email system, which is on our website. And that's where we receive all information from folks.
So what does happen
Um,
if there's a slot machine malfunction? They have to just shut it down until, if it happens on Sunday, they have to shut it down till Tuesday.
Well, yeah, a machine, and I mean, unless they can fix it, they have the,
It says it should not be cleared until approved by the department.
and you're talking about the jackpot though, right?
It might be helpful if we're all looking at the same
Yeah, I
document.
think
So
you're referring to the
What
What are
document do
you
you
looking
want me
at?
to pull up? From our website?
$25,000 jackpot
No.
situation.
So which, are you on appendix A? The internal controls.
Are you on deck?
No, yeah, all right.
Oh, okay.
See, if there's evidence of a machine malfunction, the operator shall notify the department inspectors.
can you give the section and page number, Milt,
This is on,
or at least the section number?
this is from current rules because we haven't changed them yet.
And what's the section number?
I didn't write that down.
Hold on. Okay, so if you look at appendix A, page 19. It starts with 2. I don't know what was above it. It keeps scrolling up. Extremely low. Yeah, 2E, Roman numeral 2. Yeah, this first part. This is just one example, right? So it says protect the slot machine from any further play to the satisfaction of department inspectors or personnel.
So, you know, interesting.
And then it says it should not be clear until approved by the department. So the department can do it on a Monday.
So that brings up another thing. We've only been searching for on duty, but there are other references to having to have
Just department inspectors.
having an inspector there to do something, which is probably going to be more. There's going to be more things because that didn't even come up in the search of on duty.
And then it says the slot machine shall not be clear until approved by the department. So I don't know what that takes. I would assume it's visual, but if it's not, tell me. Is that something you can call in? Anyone? I don't know what that takes.
So first, only from my experience, first you'd have to gather whether or not it's a machine malfunction. And this, I think, is not a part of the $25,000 payout. This is something totally different.
Yeah,
So we understand.
that's right.
And so, you know, these are machines, these are devices, and they go disarray, but if it's malfunctioning or doing something wrong, then obviously we want to be able to look at it. And to make sure the malfunction is resolved before it's put back into play.
Okay, so if it happens on a Sunday, they've got to tape it off until Tuesday. That's how I read this.
Yes.
So let me ask another scenario. In section above an S, where it says any and all significant non-routine events and unusual surveillance system failures shall be reported immediately to the department's inspector on duty by phone or in person, and the department's inspector supervisor and the director by email. So let's say there was a significant non-routine, unusual surveillance system failure. What would the on-site department inspector's response be? Would they again, if they couldn't do surveillance, would the inspector on site say, we have to halt all gaming until we have surveillance going? So what would they do? And I guess so, and I'm asking because my question is, if they're not there, what do we expect the casino to do?
Well, my experience in any state that I've been in, when surveillance goes down, you have to close, right? Because you have to have the constant coverage. You have to be able to meet the standards of your surveillance system.
But
So,
that's not in our rules. I mean, that's on them, but I'm talking about on our rules. What would the inspector do?
well, first of all, we have to verify we just had a couple at Oxford for thunder strikes or lightning strikes, took out a lot of cameras, but they were all outside in the parking lot. Right? And then, give or take a few, but they were able to identify it, bring the pertinent ones back up, and then work on the other ones. I guess you still have some cameras coming in to replace the ones outside the parking lot. But essentially what we're worried about from a regulatory standpoint is I'm worried about what's going on at the casino floor, what's going on at the table games, what's going on where cash is being handled. I'm not necessarily concerned too much about the parking lot. So, but that's not to say I'm not, but I have more attention on the operations inside. So,
So what
but
happens
if all the cameras go down, then yeah, you have to close. You have to close until you can bring them all back up. That's why they have power backup when they have these power outages. They have big, huge generators, and they
So they don't lose their power. They just have whatever we're defining as a significant, non-routine and unusual surveillance system failure. I have an inspector on site right there now. What is the inspector doing in that situation in that scenario that's in this piece of the rule?
Oh, you just let them know, because he's going to reach out to Vicky or reach out to me and say, of the 900 cameras at this casino, 850 of them are not operating right now. What do you want me to do? I don't think the inspector wants to make a call on whether or not we have to close down the casino. So that will come through the channels.
So what we'd be saying now is we would expect the casino to call you, and they have a guarantee that somebody is going to respond to them within half an hour, 20 minutes, 2 hours.
Well, I don't have to work Saturdays and Sundays, but I check my phone probably every 2-3 hours between duties on the weekend. So, I don't have it
And you're off
connected,
hunting, and
but
you're
I
not-
do respond. I do respond to things on the weekends. And I believe Vicky does as well. So it's not like, we work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and don't care about what happens after that. We get those notifications over the weekends.
So the on-site inspector really has no authority to do something. They have to go through the inspector supervisor or the director.
Well, I think they have certain authority, but they certainly don't have authority to close the casino down. They would want to reach out to me to see if we make that happen. And honestly, I'd be getting in touch with the commissioner before I close down a casino.
Could they say you can't operate the parts of the casino where the surveillance system isn't operating?
Could. That's an option, yes. Yep.
How the rules that are open and maybe held, how will they handle progressive controllers? One of the comments we received is that they wouldn't be able to keep those progressive machines operational if they went down on a Sunday or Monday.
Well, irregardless of what day. So progressives, there's player participation. And I don't want to leave that open to having anybody mess with that controller system without an inspector there. Because there's, like I say, there's player participation. So I guess, Eric, you may be able to give a better example, but I'm thinking if you're playing a quarter machine, a nickel of it goes to the progressive, right? And so that's player participation. And so I don't want to openly allow, that's not like a regular slot machine where it's all in and out. This has a player participation. So I want a department inspector there if they have to make any changes to those controllers. Otherwise, if there wasn't player participation, they could do it, they could make the adjustments, fix it or whatever, just like a normal RAM clear.
Okay, sounds like we could be having a lot of machines down for 24 to 48 hours, which over the course of a year will certainly drop tax revenue.
No, not really. I mean, we'll have, like I said, we're gonna be having work orders and we'll be able to announce, give you guys, if you want, like a monthly analysis like we do with shipment approvals, you know, that sort of thing. Vicky can certainly incorporate that into her operator report to say, we had these many RAM clears or this many malfunctions or whatever the case may be. I don't think it would be hard to do because, you know, we're looking at these work orders every day and
Well, so one concern was if they need to replace the table felts or lights in an emergency, you can't do it on a Sunday and Monday.
I don't know that that's going to happen 3 times a week. I mean, the layouts come in, they schedule them, they do them. The lighting, I don't particularly understand that unless you're not getting a good camera coverage on the table. You might have to adjust the lighting and stuff like that. But I've never seen a table felt. There's not an emergency for a table felt unless you're changing the game theme. In my view, I mean, if you get felts, they come in. First chance you get, you change them out. But it's not like you got to stop the game because the felt's a little faded or something like that.
I mean, we could get the numbers for you, like $25,000. How many of those occurred on a Monday and a Sunday?
Well, I'm hoping those are random, so those numbers shouldn't matter.
They
But historically, I don't even want to rely on those because.
I mean,
well,
if it's operating properly, it could happen every poll.
right, but that's not how that works. These machines are set for numbers and payouts. It's not every single time. It's just not a thing.
That can't be
We can-
right.
that-
That can't
yeah,
be,
that
that can't be right.
Actually, it's
That cannot be, hold on.
Okay.
Wait.
It
No,
is
time out, time out, time out, time out. Are the slot machines not running on random number generators?
They are, but
Well, hold on, because if you're telling me that the patrons in Maine, when they pull that lever, hit the button, are not able to win a jackpot every time, we got a big problem.
No, they are.
What I'm saying
No,
is
they
you're concerned about a scenario that may have not happened at all in the last 3 years.
And it may happen.
But we're
5 times
concerned, we're
in-
concerned about scenarios of people calling out sick that happens 8 days a year.
I understand that. But if we're trying to address every single scenario, that is an incredible undertaking, staffing wise, because
Well, it's not if there's an inspector on
And
duty.
we have inspectors on duty. It's not like we didn't used to have inspectors all the time there, other than.
I mean, I think there's 2
hours
routes to go. Either we're gonna have these things keep going through inspectors, or we take it out, put it on the casino's controls, because it doesn't matter 2 days a week. Why does it matter the other 5? And that's it.
That's simple.
They follow their mix. They're doing their thing, and maybe we cut more staff. I don't know, but like, it's gonna be way too complicated, I think. Because then it's gonna have to change again. Because if they launch sports books, Sunday will absolutely be one of the busiest days of the week, hands down, at least in the fall and the winter. So probably just turn more over to them. But I think there's no way we're gonna do this right now. So, because there's 6 references to on-duty inspectors, but then there's all the other references to the department.
That someone has to be there.
Like in terms of, the malfunction. That's not a phone call. Someone's got to go look at the machine. So, no, I think we're gonna have to look at it, each one individually.
And I think there's sort of two options the board could consider in terms of how they want to address that. They could go forward with the republication that has already been transmitted to the Secretary of State and then readdress this with another publication following this discussion. Or you could ask the director to attempt to pull that third publication and we can attempt to address it there. But I think we are actively in rulemaking in this section. You have the opportunity to address it. And then I think once you make that overarching determination, then we need some sub-direction about how you want, what you want done next in terms of the rulemaking to address those issues that you've
I think
raised.
it has to be pulled back because the rules as currently in rulemaking, almost publication, when they come to the board, I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm certainly not going to vote for them or vote for final approval because they're contrary to what we're doing.
Right, you'll have an additional opportunity to discuss and amend them in that process. So it won't just be yes, no,
Right, I
we'll be
know,
able to
but-
discuss,
but
yeah,
We know that if we put them out, we still got to talk about, we still got to amend them anyway. So
understood.
we might as well pull them back at the very least. You agree?
Yeah, and then I think, well, yeah. And then we gotta look at each reference individually. to
And
inspect
I think
or
we
to
have
the
to come up
inspector.
with something in the meantime that says we are not going to hold the casinos to violations of the rules that we are putting them in a situation where they may have to violate. Whether that's stated, whether that's in a motion or just a broad understanding.
So I think you need to formally vote if you want to retract, because you have already voted to publish those rules. So you need to vote to retract that publication. So I would recommend that be the first determination if that is the will of the board.
Yeah, I think,
I make a motion that we retract the rules that have currently been submitted to the Secretary of State.
I'll second it. Any comment? All right, vote, Ms. Green.
Aye.
Ms. Bickmore.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. So what do we do in the meantime? I think it's just the casino's got to follow their mix and notify the department, the inspector and department when. And I don't know, I don't really deal with this. The next available inspector, I'm not quite sure what the best thing is.
Are you term?
Like in the interim period now, where we have all of these things,
Where they can't.
where the
follow
rules say you must notify on-duty inspector, or you have to wait for an on-duty inspector.
Right,
But there is none.
and you're asking what would happen
What do we do in the temporary period?
to allow the licensees to perform some of those functions
Yeah.
where a department person is contemplated to be involved in some way.
Yes.
So as you know, the board issues discipline against licensees. And the unit, enforces the rules and the laws. However, it's the board's prerogative to impose discipline. So I'm not sure there's much the board can do or has to do
Yeah.
to allow or to not impose discipline.
Well, let's, I think the simplest thing is, Milt, where do you want them, if there's a portion of the rules where they have to send notice to an on-duty inspector, but inspectors are dead, what should they do?
They can email the grant control unit email on the website. Real easy. Get the website, contact, and control email.
And do
Fire
they
away.
wait for a response or can they take action?
Some of them just say notify.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
But some of them, they need,
so if it's noticed, that's what we're gonna do in the meantime. We'll notice if they have to wait for action, they're gonna have to wait.
Right, so for example, if an inspector needs to be there for a chip count, for example, that's something that has to be done. With an inspector.
And then, yeah, I think that's all we can really do at this point. And then ask that the facilities track what's happening in the next month or so, right? Are these actual issues or not? Because we're gonna deal with the rules.
Right, and if there are any complaints that may come in regarding actions that the board can consider, you know, whether it's imposed discipline, that is something you consider that it was during this interim period, whether you
Yeah.
want to exercise. some
So
sort
I
of
think
discretion.
wherever you have a question where it says you have to notify, send the email, that counts as notice. And if it's, you gotta wait, you're gonna have to wait and let us know how many times that's happened.
Well, the only wait time is gonna be Sunday. Administrative staff's in the office on Monday. I'm here 6 o'clock in the morning. That's one of the email areas that I look at first thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're looking at one day.
We need to formally vote on that.
I think that could just be noticed.
Yeah, I don't think you,
Yeah.
I think that you can
Alright.
express that as a policy of the board. If you do want to sort of adopt it as a formal policy, you should vote. You could just determine if there's a consensus as
I
well.
think it's interim guidance.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, but again, for the board to make even interim guidance, you should vote on it because you're a body. It's not just simply one person saying, I think this is the interim policy. So
sure.
I don't want to call it a policy. Can I call it guidance?
absolutely.
Then we have to take it back, whole thing. It's fine. It's guided, right?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, so I guess the guidance is whenever notification is required, that you email the unit's email address. And for everything else, you have to wait. That would be my motion for guidance.
Seconded. Yeah, sure. All right, Ms. Bighorn,
Aye.
Ms. Green.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. We'll get this figured out. All right. Anything else on this?
Well, I think now the bigger discussion arguably should happen. How do you want the actual rulemaking issues to be addressed in the interim? We're gonna pull back the rules, but what steps to address the specific terms that, and issues
So
being
I think,
raised?
so Director Champion listed, we basically need to add the section numbers to, all the references,
Hmm,
like on his list,
There's no section, there's no citation.
there's no citations, right? I think he pulled out every reference to, on-duty inspectors. I
And
think
department.
in department,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, well, so like, this one did, right? It says notified department inspectors. Maybe do a second search for, I don't know, department, because there was that one. But we need those citations on this list, would make it easier to then determine how do we want to edit each one. Because I think some are just going to be deleting on-duty inspector. Just make it the department. They can just send an email.
Okay.
I think some are going to be pretty easy. So like, did that make sense?
You and Milt should be on the same page, because the task was for the department.
Like the list you made.
We'll make the changes, bring them back in September, and then we'll publish? Or do you want to give me the authority to make the change and then republish as soon as,
No, we're gonna have to talk about each one.
okay,
But basically, the list you already made, we just need
Right.
sections.
the section.
So it's easier to say what we want, than do it. Yeah, no.
Okay.
So the goal would be, assuming the Secretary of State hasn't acted yet,
Yeah, I email them, email.
it's pulled back.
Yeah.
And we're gonna look at this in context now.
I'll have that ready for the.
Does that make
September.
sense?
Just so I know, are you asking, the board also asking for draft language to speak to these concerns, or, yeah, okay.
I mean, if Milt, you feel like there's something you would prefer, certainly share that, but no, you don't have to draft.
Okay, so you just want the sections added, that's it?
Yep.
All right,
If you have a preferred route, certainly let us know. Okay.
Yep.
Anything else on that? All right. Moving along. The last item is about our license applications. Milt put all of them in there, which is good to see. I think the point of this was really the entity licenses we want to look at. I didn't see anything on the other applications that I thought warranted changes, but other board members thought. It's really the business entity 2023.
And I think specifically, board member Green wanted us put in a line of what they actually do. A slot machine manufacturer, a bill validator, sales person.
I think, yeah, I think if, I don't know where best to do it, maybe on this page, the title on the page 3 of 6, says renewal application for business entities.
Mm-hmm.
If you could fit in like a number 11 at the bottom, that would say, describe the services or goods, provided in the state of Maine.
Mhm.
I think that would help.
Yeah, so we wanted to know what they, not,
Yeah, not necessarily not in Maine. What are you providing in Maine?
yeah, it was less about like, what is a slot machine provider and more specifically about, yeah, what are they doing in the state of
So I think goods or services probably captures that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? That's a simple change.
Good.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the easiest thing. I'll do. All right. Okay, board business. Anyone got anything? Okay. Oh, I had one question. I looked on the complaint dashboard. Looks like there hasn't been anything since January. Is that right? It may be. Everyone's behaving themselves.
Yeah, I'm gonna have I want to confer with the AGs first, but I'm gonna have a little conversation around that at the September meeting. So, and I'll give you information in advance if it's appropriate.
Okay.
that are you suggesting there are complaints that aren't on the dashboard, or you just might change them?
Well, so there was a process developed whereby there was an investigative committee review and a complaint committee review and all that sort of thing. So, and then the biggest portion of this is, they have 30 days to respond and all that. So we have the ones from January and we've addressed some of them through the investigative committee. But I have a different idea, but I'd like to confer with the AAGs before I make any presentation in September.
Any questions?
Well,
Are there any open cases?
There's
There's a couple.
aside from the one that.
why don't we know about them?
Pardon?
Why don't we know about them?
Well, that's because they haven't gone through, and that's realistically the discussion that I want to have with the AAGs is the fact that sometimes these complaints make it to the investigative committee and they get dismissed, so you'll never see it. And I kind of think that's something you should see, but that's part of my conversation with the AAGs before September.
Okay. And then on the dashboard now, there's 2 that say last status January 16th. It says status board review. What are those?
I'd have to look at them. That was several months ago. Might have been something we already dealt with.
Okay, well. Let's get that updated for the next meeting.
Well, like I say, it'll coincide with the topic that I want to have with the AAGs. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Public comment. Can't see the Zoom, but let me know. Yeah, Austin. Dead man walk.
I'll be brief. I'm Austin, general manager for a while of Hollywood Casino. And as I'm sure many of you have heard, I have tendered my resignation from Hollywood Bangor, unfortunately. It's bittersweet, but we've spent so much time with the Churchill Downs team in these meetings. I decided to join them, and I'm going to be going to run their newest property in Terre Haute, Indiana. So I'm excited, but I wanted to say it's been a privilege to spend nearly 6 years here working with all of you. Proud of what we've accomplished, and I will miss all of you And I wish you all the best. And I am committed to ensuring a smooth transition. The general manager search has begun. I don't have updates on that, but I'm working with the team. I'll work with the unit to make sure that nothing is dropped in the interim. And again, I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Austin.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room? Anyone on Zoom? Hit the raise your hand button if you have it. No? Okay. All right, so absent some emergency, our next meeting is currently scheduled for September 17th, which will be either in this room or that room, but same building. So stay tuned till then. Enjoy.
So
What?
I'm just to let you know, I'm not here. I don't know if that matters, but I will not be here.
Maybe we want you here.
I'm gonna be in Greece.
Okay, they have Zoom entries.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on a boat.
Well, do we want to pick a new date?
The week before that. I don't know if I want to move it up all the way to the 3rd, which is the day after Labor Day.
No.
Then I gotta move it to the 1st of October.
Yeah, it's too long.
Or, I mean,
What about the 27th
Friday the 27th,
of August?
August. Yeah, I can do that.
Hopefully. May not have everybody. See if I'm around. Mel, are you here?
What day?
Tuesday, August 27th.
Unlikely. I'm here all the time.
You said more than likely.
I left you and Jen.
Oh, I'm available. I can speak for eight.
Yes.
August 20, yeah, it should be.
I think we should probably do that. I don't want to wait till longer. So let's, yeah, August 27th. It's a month and a half. That's fine. All right, scratch what I said. August 27th, 9 o'clock. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And we'll let you know the location because we changed the date. So it's either gonna be this room.
Sorry, Mel.
Sorry. Seconded.
All right, take a vote. Ms. Bickmore,
Aye.
Ms. Green, I'm an aye as well. We are adjourned. Stop the recording. Thanks.